Although the islands of Madeira and Porto Santo were known at least since the 14th century, it was only in 1419 to 1420 that they were officially discovered. Settlement began around 1425, led by the very navigators who had landed there during that earlier expedition. João Gonçalves Zarco, Tristão Vaz Teixeira, and Bartolomeu Perestrelo were each granted control over Funchal, Machico, and Porto Santo, respectively. These grants came from the Crown, which thus took on a direct role in this new phase of overseas expansion. In 1433, King Duarte bestowed lordship over the archipelago to his brother, Prince Henry, Infante Dom Enrique, granting him full rights and revenues from the islands. This favor made perfect sense, given Henry's strong interest and involvement in Atlantic ventures at the time. By 1440, 1446, and 1450, the captaincies of Machico, Porto Santo, and Funchal were officially established. Those same navigators were appointed as captain majors of the areas they had helped settle. These appointments and the associated land grants were hereditary and permanent, made under Prince Henry's authority as the island's feudal lord. As donatary captains, they had broad powers, civil and criminal jurisdiction, the ability to distribute land for farming, and monopolies over mills, ovens, and the salt trade. They also collected certain taxes. While they answered to the prince and the king, their distance from the central powers meant they operated with significant autonomy and influence. In essence, a feudal system was transplanted to the islands. It shaped local social hierarchy, organized settlement, and structured an economy based primarily on agriculture. In that regard, there was little that was truly new. From early on, Madeira's economy developed with a strong focus on trade. In addition to fishing, the island had an abundance of valuable resources suitable for export, most notably timber, but also woad and orchyle, both used in dyeing. During the initial years of settlement, wheat was the main crop, followed by wine and sugar. Grain was always in short supply on the mainland and exceeded local consumption needs in Madeira, which made it a valuable export, destined for the Portuguese mainland, Ceuta, or even the Guinea coast, where it could be exchanged for other goods. However, from the 1470s onwards, sugarcane, introduced experimentally by Prince Henry, became the dominant crop. It soon overtook other agricultural products in terms of cultivation, export volume, and profitability. Sugar became Madeira's primary source of wealth, so much so that it attracted merchants to Funchal from Portugal, as well as Jewish and Genoese traders. Madeira effectively served as a testing ground for future Portuguese colonization strategies. Both its settlement patterns and its social, legal, and economic organization would later influence similar processes in the Azores, and, in the 16th century, Brazil, where the captaincy system was also adopted. The success of the Madeira model played a key role in its adoption as a blueprint for expansion. As for the Azores, the discovery of the islands is less clearly documented. However, it is generally believed that Diogo de Silves first sighted some of them in 1427, possibly as a result of a navigational detour on a voyage between mainland Portugal and Madeira. The westernmost islands, Flores and Corvo, were only discovered or formally identified later, in 1452, by Diogo de Tave. Just like in Madeira, Prince Henry the Navigator played a vital role in promoting settlement in the Azores. In 1439, he was granted lordship over the 7 islands known at the time, and immediately began initiatives aimed at their occupation and development. Gonçalo Velho Cabral, a knight in Henry's household and a member of the Order of Christ, became the first donatary captain of Santa Maria and São Miguel, following the same administrative model used in Madeira. The islands were primarily settled by people from mainland Portugal, but Flemish settlers also played a notable role, especially on the islands of Teixeira, Faial, Pico, as well as Flores and São Jorge. While their exact numbers remain uncertain, their presence was significant, and they eventually integrated into the local population, merging with the Portuguese community. As in Madeira, the first major crop produced in the Azores was wheat. The shortage of grain in mainland Portugal and the demands of Portuguese-held cities in North Africa made cereal farming the natural starting point for an agrarian economy that was being built from scratch. But the parallels with Madeira didn't stop there. Other products like orchil and woad, used to extract indigo dye for export to Flanders, as well as sugarcane, also became part of a growing export-oriented economy. From 1433 onwards, the Portuguese crown introduced various measures to encourage both settlement and trade between the archipelagos of Madeira and the Azores and the mainland. Unlike Ceuta, these islands were self-sustaining and could also supply goods to Portugal. Alongside privateering and the early stages of trade along the West African coast, the development of Madeira and the Azores offered Portugal a new, promising path for overseas expansion. Importantly, this expansion didn't involve military risks with Muslim forces, nor did it provoke conflicts with other Christian powers. That stood in contrast to the situation with the Canary Islands, where disputes involving Castile and the papacy had dragged on since the mid-14th century and were still unresolved at the time. As for Cape Verde, one of its islands, Boa Vista, was identified, and 3 more were sighted in 1456 by the Venetian navigator and merchant Alvise Cadamosto, who was sailing under the Portuguese flag. Although Cape Verde didn't yet hold the same economic significance as Madeira or the Azores, it was also settled under the direction of Prince Henry. He assigned this task to Antonio da Noli, a Genoese explorer who had discovered 5 of the islands. Prince Henry's adopted son and heir, Dom Fernando, also played a role in the colonization efforts of Cape Verde. With this initiative reflecting the Portuguese push further south along the African coast, their maritime expansion became more firmly established. The strategic location of the Cape Verde archipelago made it an ideal stopover for ships heading toward the Guinea coast. The crossing of Sierra Leone, which marked the southern limit of Prince Henry's voyages, and the later exploration of the Gulf of Guinea after his death, granting access to goods such as chili peppers, ivory, and especially the gold from the Mina region in present-day Ghana, gave overseas trade a new scope and significance, which would later be further amplified under King João II. Roughly 60 years after the conquest of Ceuta, the Portuguese had achieved much more than geographic discoveries. Their navigation and exploration along the African coastline had set the stage for what would become the most prosperous era in Portugal's then 350-year-old history. Rather than being rooted in a broader European cycle of growth, Portugal's overseas expansion was more a response to the crises of the 14th and 15th centuries, the kingdom's structural difficulties, and its deadlock within the Iberian Peninsula. By taking advantage of its geographic position on the edge of Europe, where land ended but the world did not, Portugal placed itself at the crossroads between the known and the unknown. Its early success lay largely in its ability to connect and bridge these two worlds. The benefits of this connection soon became apparent both to the kingdom itself and to its surrounding sphere. Yet as Portugal looked outward at the dawn of the 15th century, worn down by war and lacking in material and human resources, it could only do so by pushing everything it had to the limit.